I've trained clients to IFBB and Natural Pro Cards, to national and world records in powerlifting, as well as professional, Olympic, and CrossFit Games athletes. In today's video, I want to share how I'm structuring my push workouts to help develop my chest. My primary focus for my push day, which is going to include chest, shoulders, and triceps, is my chest. I'm wanting to bring that up. I have a history of some chest injuries when I was younger playing sports related to shoulder injuries, and I'm wanting to rebuild and balance out that tissue. I also have very short upper arm bones, which makes my triceps more dominant in my pressing movements. So over the years of weight training, my triceps have grown at a faster rate than my chest has. But with increased knowledge, I'm learning how to undo that and make sure that my chest can catch up. One of the ways I do that is to pre-exhaust with chest isolation before my presses. So in today's workout, I was doing cable crossovers before I did my compound movements. For my cable crossovers, I like to stand, instead of out in front of the cable stacks, I try to actually stand back between the cable stack. The reason why I really like to do that is it decreases the tension I have in the widest portion when my chest is most exposed. Since I'm doing this as the first exercise, I want to be aware that I need to warm up the joints and warm up the muscle, get some blood flowing, get the body ready for heavy weight loads. If I can minimize the stressfulness in the most risky position, that allows me to protect myself a little bit from injury in that first movement. Also, that allows that part of the range of motion when I'm most stretched, that is going to be the easiest portion of the range of motion. And then as my hands come closer together, my upper arm overall is becoming more perpendicular to the cable. And that is where it would feel the heaviest. And that's actually more towards the midline. So it's helping me develop the middle portion of my chest. In most compound presses, we're going to emphasize the outer portion of the chest in the most stretched position. And then as you would press up, it usually gets a little bit easier on the chest due to gravity, or if you have a non-converging machine, that usually de-emphasizes that midline of the chest. So sometimes people will have difficulty developing the middle of their chest. This cable crossover position is a great way to get around that. You can actually specifically target the portion of the range of motion that does target the middle of the chest. So I like to do that not only to protect myself from injury, to isolate the chest before I do my compound movements. My chest is more fatigued than my triceps going into the compound movements, which makes them more effective for chest growth. But it also helps me target that middle of the chest, which I won't be able to do in those compound movements. So really cool, a lot of layers in there, but that's a great way to start the workout. And then for today's workout, I did Smith machine, a slight incline. The bench I have is from Rep Fitness. I think it's called their Blackhawk bench. And the angles of incline go from 10 degrees, then 20, then I think 30, and it goes on from there. So I did just a 10-degree incline. It allows me to get a little bit more of that middle portion of my chest, if we're talking about top to bottom, more of that midline. Whereas if you do totally flat and you have your shoulder blades pulled together and your brace proper in your shoulders and upper back, you tend to target more across the bottom portion of the chest. So doing that slight incline helps me bring in more of that midline of the chest. I also did a reverse band option, and I had it set up to where the bands had very minimal, if any, tension at the top of the movement, but they did take away some weight at the bottom. And then in that exercise, I specifically kept tension on the muscle the entire time. The combination of all that allows that once I unrack and I start into the first rep, I can load my chest. I'll feel my chest starting to stretch under the weight load. I want to come down to the bottom where I still feel it in my chest and not have it transfer over into the front of my shoulders or start to kind of like sit into the end range of the joint. I want to keep muscular tension. And then I think of just flexing my chest, and I'll stop before my tricep would start to take over in the lockout. So that range of motion, you might think of it as, say, cutting off 10% at the top and the bottom. That middle 80%, just keeping constant tension the entire time. That's really exhausting on the chest muscle, but again, it allows me to isolate the chest away from the triceps. And the tension difference via the bands allows, as I'm pressing up towards the top, when normally the triceps would start to help out, or you might start to feel a little bit of a loss of tension in the chest, by having the band starting to release tension at the top, it's actually loading that weight heavier into my chest at the top. So I can actually feel a better constant tension throughout the movement if I have that light band accommodation. I then moved on to dumbbell presses. At this point, I'm trying not to do anything fancy, just trying to exhaust anything that's left. So I did all the fancy stuff in the first two movements. For dumbbell chest presses, same thing. I'm just kind of thinking of the range of motion that keeps the chest the main focus. And I am trying to pay attention to at the bottom, making sure my hands are wide enough that I can feel my chest feel the stretch at the bottom, rather than keeping my hands loaded closer in and more so pressing through my triceps. I want to widen my hands out and let my chest take the stress of that movement. Back when I used to do competitive powerlifting, I relied a lot on my triceps for my bench. I was able to do over a 400-pound competition bench, and I did a lot of tricep-based dumbbell presses, and that was on purpose because I did want to strengthen my triceps. Now that I'm switching over to growing my chest, I want to allow my hands to be a little bit wider so I can keep that tension on the chest at all times. Then to finish out the workout, I supersetted some lateral raises with a slow eccentric and tricep press downs. For the tricep press downs, I like using a rope grip, and as I'm pulling down, I'm also pulling apart. And I feel that that better includes all three heads of the tricep, so I get more of a full arm development out of that movement, rather than staying narrow the whole time or starting and staying wide the whole time. I like having that little bit of like a sweep to the movement. And then for the lateral raises, I did cheat a little bit on the concentric. You could see me swinging my body a little, but that allowed me to get more slowed eccentrics, which is going to help create more of that muscular stress that promotes muscle growth. So that is how and the why of how I structured my push day today. If you like any of these concepts, feel free to give them a try in your next workout. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. That's it. I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching.